உலகெங்கும் தமிழரின் பிம்பம் உங்கள் டிவி.
Hello and welcome to CrossRoads. I'm Sudash Ignatius. Good mental health and well-being is important for everyone. When your mental health is in good shape, it's easier to realize your goals and dreams and cope with stress. In today's show, we will examine the subject of mental health. It is often a taboo topic, but it's an important discussion to have. What is our perception of mental illness? How do we look upon those who have mental health problems? Is stigma still an active barrier that prevents us from having an open dialogue and seeking the help we deserve? Where do we stand with this as a community? To answer some of these questions and to get some clarity on this subject, I'm joined by Dr. Pushpa Kanaratnam here in the studio. Dr. Pushpa Kanaratnam is a registered clinical psychologist in the province of Ontario. She completed her professional degree and PhD in psychology at the University of Bergen and had practiced as a psychologist in Norway since 1996. Dr. Kanaratnam has worked with clients in diverse settings, including in private practice, at community agencies, and in psychiatric hospitals. She has published peer-reviewed articles and done numerous presentations on the topic of mental health, war trauma, and intimate partner violence in immigrants and refugees. She has also worked for 3 years on a SIDA-funded international project in Sri Lanka with the focus of mental health capacity building. She is an assistant professor at University of Toronto, Department of Psychiatry, Faculty of Medicine, and has affiliate status as a research scientist in the Social and Epidemiological Research Department at CAMH. It is my pleasure to bring her in. Welcome to CrossRoads,
Thank
Dr.
you.
Pushpa Kanaratnam.
Thank you.
And you've been on the show before.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but hopefully today we will be coming from a different perspective and discussing mental health.
Okay.
So mental health, when I think about, let's lay out some fundamentals first, because it's a sensitive and complex topic. So let's ease in the audience into the conversation. So when I hear mental health, I hear two terminologies being tossed around often: mental health and mental illnesses.
Right.
How do you define them, and how are they similar and how are they different?
Yeah, so mental illness is a pathological state. So it is usually considered as something that is affecting your daily functioning, and it is causing difficulties in getting your goals, whatever they may be, daily activities or your work or functional or study goals or whatever, or interpersonal relationships. But mental health is just mental well-being, right? So it's how your mental health is. So it's a positive concept, I would say. Mental health, like you should be mentally healthy, and it's just like being physically healthy, mentally healthy. And then this, as you said, so these words kind of get tossed around in different ways. So and that causes some confusion for people as well, right?
So every one of us should be caring or taking care of our mental health. Is that right?
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll at the end we'll look into some of the tips and strategies how to maintain our mental health. Mental health problems. I mean, do you see more of these problems in today's society in comparison to maybe 10 years ago?
Generally speaking, like talking about the population, I wouldn't say that it is something that is increasing, probably. But when I'm thinking particularly about the Tamil community, what I'm seeing is that it's becoming something that people hear now and they read about, and like programs like this program, like you talk about mental health, so people are getting more familiar with concepts and more ways of expressing themselves, and okay, so this is, if I'm having this, there's an issue. So I get surprised when one of these when I go on these shows now, that people really call in and talk about their problems, which, you know, each time it's surprising when it happens, because then it seems like there is more and more awareness, and that probably is leading to more people seeking help. Though I would say that the majority may not be seeking help, but still the people are coming out with issues and they're talking about it, and maybe with the younger generation they have more knowledge about mental illnesses, mental health, and that's also helping probably.
Definitely, like you said, I mean, it does not mean that problem did not exist before, but it's just that more awareness, so more people are seeking help.
Right. Yeah.
I know you do have your private practice as well, right? From your experience, what would you say is some of common mental health problems that you see in Tamil community?
Yeah, I would say just as in the general population, depression and anxiety are very common. Like a lot of people struggle with it, and how to say, like, but in terms of what we see in our community, in our Tamil community, is that we always we have this dichotomy when we talk about, you know, Western cultures or non-Western cultures, where in cultures like ours we have more emphasis on interpersonal relationships, like how we function socially, how we are interacting with our family, with our friends, rather than looking into ourselves, like ourself, and deep inside how our intrapersonal issues, our conflict is, you know. So that way I feel like the Tamil community is more into identifying health problems when it happens in interpersonal relationships. So if something's going wrong, and drastically wrong, then they see definitely that there's a problem. But when, let's say, you're having some depression, you're having some anxiety, and you can just hide it from others, or you can just, you know, try to function as much as possible without coming so out with it, then I wouldn't say that people are seeking help more for depression and anxiety, but they seek help more when it comes to family issues, relationships, you know, or even serious health concerns like psychotic disorders, right? So because that's what we are used to, I think, from our country. Like, we don't, though mental health problems are seen in a continuum, right? Like, it is coming from the mild to moderate to severe. We don't usually consider the mild issues, moderate issues as mental health problems. So, and that I wouldn't say that it's just in the Tamil community. Even mainstream people, when you talk to them going to see a psychologist or psychiatrist, they would say, I'm not crazy, right? So then that means, like, crazy means you are tearing your clothes or running around or talking stuff that doesn't make sense. So that's so a little bit of that is there in the mainstream as well, but we have it more because we are not exposed to looking at mental health or getting services for those things back in our country. So these things are more easily accepted there, right? Like, if a person is sad and not doing things properly, but she's still able to function in a certain way, we just take it.
Should we worried about that then? Should we start looking at differently?
Yeah, definitely. We need to be concerned with our loved ones or with our family members when we see that there is some changes happening in a person, right? And see how much it's, because that's how problems can become serious, right? So, say if there is a death or something happened, like, naturally, obviously you're going to be depressed or you're going to be anxious for a while. That's okay. Like, you know, we shouldn't be panicking for everything and saying, okay, so this is something really serious. It's just like having the flu, right? So if you get an infection, you have the flu, and you feel like, okay, I'm going to be fine in 3 or 4 days, I'm not going to run to the doctor. So it's like that. Like, if you are kind of a little bit sad or feel a bit anxious about things, that's normal. But when it goes beyond and it's affecting your functioning, then you should seek help. Not necessarily professional help right away, but at least talk to someone and see that if there are other ways to change your lifestyle or do something different, or, you know. Yeah.
And so the changes, you said, right?
Right,
We should start looking for those changes. So what are some changes that we should look for to say that someone's mental health could be at stake? What are some changes or symptoms that a loved one should be looking for?
Yeah, so it's just the day-to-day functioning, right?
Okay.
So so if you're not sleeping properly, if you are trying to probably isolate yourself a little bit more, if there are students, maybe they're dropping out of school or some. So there are different ways to identify this, right? Some people get more addicted to your computer or phone or whatever, video games. So there are so many ways, and then also with males, mostly like when males are depressed, the expression comes more as anger rather than low mood, right? So anger is also could be an expression of depression, irritability, anger. So if you see those things, you know, and then you are so it's and basically not taking care of yourself properly, or working too much, or trying to kind of hide yourself. Losing interest in what's happening, going on, right? And even some people try to bury themselves into work or into something different, so that they just want to kind of hopefully they want this to just go away, right? And that's one thing that most of us in our community feel like, you know, if you just let it go, it will go away, right? Yeah.
And you mentioned also about this informal support system, right? That's your family, friends, and all the extended family.
Right.
And we are in a way blessed to have that. And right? You don't see that a lot in the mainstream community. So how important it is to use that informal system, support system.
No, that's as you said, you know, that's a strength in our community, because I remember talking to, during my research, I was talking to some service providers, and that's one thing that came up, which is, and being a war-affected community, a diaspora coming here and settling down, actually compared to, so this was just not anything research-based, but compared to other communities, it was I heard that our community has a strength of nobody's left alone. There'll be somebody for someone who will just take care of them, you know, socialize with them, help them out with basic stuff in the community. So so that is definitely a strength, but that could also be backfire on the other way, right? Because we are too much into other people's business, right? Okay. And we are too much also into comparing ourselves with others, and competitive, becoming so jealous and competitive about others, and then that becomes a kind of a facet, like you want to maintain a particular picture out in the community where there is so much going on inside.
So that creates high expectations, and that in turn creates
and
a lot
pushes you so much. And also I've heard, like, you know, say if one person is going to see a psychiatrist, another person is coming to visit someone there, and then the rumors go like, right? Okay. So I've heard a lot of Tamil people not even wanting to sit in the reception. They would come to see me sometimes, and they wouldn't like to stand in the corridor and wait for me, because they are afraid that someone might see them, right?
Okay.
So things like that. And then when you go to a wedding, they can talk. I've heard these stories, like, okay, so what were you doing there? Or this lady has some problems. So that kind of spreading rumors and not being respectful of what people are going through and the distress they have.
Yeah, so we have to start to develop more acceptance towards mental health problems,
definitely.
Is that right?
Acceptance, and equally, you know, just as people get physically ill, you get mentally ill as well, and just to get over that kind of stigma and discrimination based on that.
I know we're going to speak about stigma later, but quickly, what are some common stresses that you see? Perhaps in today's society, it's more prominent, and that is causing mental, deterioration, right? Mental well-being being at stake. I mean, you said that high expectations is one thing. What are the other stresses that causes mental health problems in today's society?
You know, I don't have a research base for this, but then what I could have as hypothesis is that, you know, we have struggled a lot getting wherever we are now and having had gone through a lot of stuff probably. And then we are not people who usually talk about these things, you know. We are determined, we want to move on in life and we want to put everything behind us, and in that kind of determination, or in that kind of force of kind of wanting to move on, we try to maybe put everything inside and just put a lock on it and don't deal with things, right? And then we as I told you, the attitude like, just let's move on and things will work out. And then if suddenly something happens, like I see a lot of accident victims, motor vehicle accidents even, like they would kind of, it would be the maximum pressure they were living in, right? So working 2 jobs and not having a good relationship in the family, but still trying to keep the facade outside and doing everything they can, and then spending too much than they can, like sending kids for all sort of classes, or buying a big house, or having so much mortgage, and then everything just is they're kind of balanced, on the tip of the balance, and then an accident happens and everything collapses, right? And then suddenly people start experiencing all that they have gone through before, which has not been dealt with.
Yeah.
So
we do have to be more proactive in terms of addressing mental health problems. I know we have a lot more to talk, but we have to take a break. So stay with us for more discussion on mental health with Dr. Pushpa Kanayaratnam after a short break. Welcome back. This is Crossroads. I'm Sudhashi Ignatius. In today's show, we are discussing mental health. Mental health can be a sensitive and complex subject for all of us. In today's show, we are joined by Dr. Pushpa Kanayaratnam. She is helping us to understand this subject a little better. So right before the break, you were talking about stigma and obviously the community's sort of attitude towards mental health problems, right? And that combines or overlaps with stigma, obviously.
Right.
Is stigma real? Because, you know, sometimes we kind of live in this socially constructed fear, but it is not real. Is stigma real?
You know, that's more kind of a, I don't know, philosophical question.
Yes.
But then it's true. In a way, you're asking, like, because we are all part of our community, and whatever we have as an attitude is could be reflected in ourselves, like, okay, so if I'm feeling this way, then probably the other person is going to feel the same way or talk the same way. So that's what we need to kind of make the changes individually, like everything starts from the individual, right? So when we try to learn more about this, create more awareness and more room for respect and understanding with others in the community who are struggling with issues, it's where is the stigma going to go? It's not going to be there, right? But then I think it's also from a systemic perspective, it's very difficult. It's not just in our community, so it's all over, and even.
So what contributes to stigma?
I
know it's our perception, our attitude.
Yeah,
what else does contribute to stigma?
Yeah, so it's been like that. I think, you know, I not that I think, but even our community so thinking about our culture and traditionally we have been a very open society, very open and liberal and giving room to a lot of things, and actually more than the Western way of thinking. We have a religion, we have a tradition of thinking mental well-being as a whole, like the body and the mind, a holistic perspective, right? And then it's all about how things develop gradually, where we became more and more tight into ourselves, and then we become so rigid in our ways of thinking. And I don't know, you know, we need a lot of thinking and a lot of intelligent minds put together to find answers to these things. But Yeah, but
Then let me ask you a different question then. I mean, stigma comes from many different directions and different places, obviously. And as you said, stigma can come from us within us as well, right? That's self-stigma per se. And I see sometimes, especially within our community, they're sort of beating ourselves up so much, and we are afraid to kind of seek help because we are afraid that our neighbors would know about the problems, mental health problems that our family members are having, or we feel like we're a failure, or we're going to create shame for our community, so we can't talk about this. Speak about the self-stigma, and I don't think it's healthy, isn't it?
No, not at all. And I think we all know about it too, that it is a very difficult thing to overcome, and it's out there in the mainstream as well. But then when it comes to our community, just as we spoke about this thing, like it is about more having like they say in the Chinese communities, Japanese community, losing your face. But then I think it's there in our community too, like, you know, whatever you are struggling with, whatever you are doing, whatever is happening in your family life or in your mental health or whatever, it shouldn't come out and be known to others. We should just try to kind of keep that thing that you know. So
but what will happen though if you don't address these problems
yeah,
in
so
a timely manner?
That's what is going on in the community, right? So that's why whenever you get a referral, whenever someone, like even like I work with family conflicts, I work with accident issues, I work with immigration and all that. So you see the most serious cases when it comes to communities like our communities, right? So you don't go and seek help when you are wondering about something, when you really want to know answers, so mild or moderate or whatever. But then again, in the system too, like we don't have enough services, right? So the problem is like nowadays it's a general like we know from research that we are overly medicated as a society for mental health issues. Like it's like depression is the one big thing after I think it's on top of the list where people get medicated, so overly medicated because we don't have the services, right? So what we do, and because of the stigma, we think like we should just go to the family doctor and nobody would know, because we go and see a family doctor for anything, right? So if you're sitting in the reception area, nobody would know that you're having mental health issues. And then you go there and then you get few minutes to talk to the family doctor, and then you don't want to be referred anywhere else, or maybe the family doctor is not giving you enough information, or you say no, I'm not going to go anywhere else, you just tell me what to do, right? And then what happens, they don't have the time to sit and talk to you. So even a mild problem, a moderate problem, you get medications for that, and then when you start with that, that's it, right? So you think, okay, medications are going to solve my problem. So so people who don't need the medications get started with medications, or they being sent to a psychiatrist. Psychiatrists also busy in the hospitals, so they can see a patient every week, for example, like they see once a month, or they have to look into the medications and change it, and that's how mostly the treatment is, because there are no services of where to go, and there is no health OHIP covered services available. So this is a challenge for anybody in any community, and it's a challenge also for the Tamil community. Yeah.
Yeah, you said that OHIP doesn't cover, so just want to pick up on that. Counseling, not at all covered by.
So there are community agencies where you can actually get help without paying, or by like they may have a sliding scale. So then you have to know those services. So the family doctors or people you go to, mostly family doctors, should be able to kind of know where the services exist and guide the client. And then again, that's the second step, right? So then that's another barrier for people to go and get help. And as I told you, many people feel like if they don't talk about it, it's going to be okay. Like they somehow manage, and then you wait until the last kind of serious level of illnesses, and then things become really difficult, and it becomes difficult to recover from it, right?
So do you think that lack of understanding or lack of understanding, awareness about the complexity of this mental health, problems, and how can this get worse.
Right.
That need to be provided more.
Yeah,
to the
definitely.
community.
Yeah. So it has to be something that people can just talk about. So more and more visibility in terms of listening to what this is and understanding what mental health is, and you should be able to see it, read it, hear it everywhere, and people who are suffering from mental illness, like this happens in other mainstream communities, like people come forward and talk about it, and that creates a better awareness, right? Okay, so I can, if that person is able to talk about it, I can talk about it too, right? There's nothing to be ashamed of. So it's a real challenge. Yeah.
Do you think that it should probably start from homes? I mean, within the family members start, discussing.
Right.
It's a starting point, right? In some families, they don't even talk about it.
No. So that's the other thing. Like, you don't have time for your children, or you don't have time for each other in a family because you're so busy trying to meet the ends, and because you have you have expectations that you can't meet, and then you get so busy, and because these things have to have a fundamentally there has to be something in the relationships in a family which will help you to have a kind of a friendly discussion with your children, as they grow older. And when that basic trust is not there, then it really can get difficult for young people, because I see that a lot, that because as parents, children need love and children need directions. So I think we are good at giving affection to our children, but then I see a lot of times you don't give the rules and regulations for children starting from the young age, like appropriate to their age. You have to actually guide the children so that they can trust you, and they can come to you, and they can know what is wrong and what is right, and how to react in a certain situation, and when it is a problem and when it is not, right? And then later on, when they have just let the children go like that, and then after a certain age you want to put more restrictions or put barriers, then it's not going to work. So and then the basic respect between human beings, like you have to, I think our community is more into education, which is a very good thing. Like we have a very high value for education. We want our children to be that and this, like from childbirth we talk about that. But I think the more emphasis should be on bringing up good children.
So
good
give
citizens.
some examples. I mean, sometimes I hear people saying even simple as sitting together for supper, right? Eating together, and discussing how the day went, asking the kids and asking the spouses, and sort of having that quality time.
Right.
Give sort of other concrete examples of what the parents as a family can do towards building this mental well-being of the entire family.
Yeah, so first of all, trying to be open as a husband and wife, to be open with each other and having a loving and respectful relationship, because I think a lot of our families struggle with that, and children are exposed to a lot of different things, and then it doesn't give you a good role model at all.
So role model, okay.
So being the parents who want to actually develop the abilities in their children, they have to kind of have that relationship themselves, and then according to the age. So the spending this quality time and all that, like we are not used to it in our right, because we grew up in a different environment, which was very very a healthy environment. Like we had open doors, neighbors, and there's everybody knew everybody, so you have like a lot of caregivers in a way, even though you don't have your parents right there, right? But here life is different. You are mostly indoors, and then you have to kind of try to spend some time with the children, and then so according to the age, maybe for small children you sit and read a story when they go to bed, and then you can talk about like that. It doesn't have to be like you create something that you don't feel comfortable with, but just make it into a natural routine. And then when children grow up, maybe you're taking them for some activities or classes, you just talk to them while you take them for a ride, because children, as they grow up, they have different needs, right? A toddler, when the toddler falls down, the child may want to come and the mom has to hug, and you know, then they'll feel the comfort. But as a teenager, you don't need that, right? But then you may need to talk something about some friends or something like that, and we are taking them for a class. You can use the car ride as a way of having a conversation with the child and just knowing, okay, who are they dealing with, what are they doing, how is it going in school, and you know. But what our parents do sometimes is they want to talk to the friends and find out about their kids, or they try to track their phones or Facebook or whatever and try to find out about the children, right? That shouldn't be the case, because there should be an open relationship.
It's a culture that we need to create at homes.
Yeah. So even though we are not adapt to all this technology with older parents, like still knowing what they are doing, and even like small children nowadays, kids get into a lot of trouble with Facebook and computers and stuff like that. So just maybe having a common area, not being inquisitive and curious about what, you know, not kind of getting into their privacy, but still having a common area, maybe where the children could do their homework, sit and work on the computer, and then when they grow up and they could have their own rooms to sit and study, right? So just thinking about step by step, building that trust.
How about self-esteem? The sort of giving that self-esteem and the self-confidence, and because I see a lot of kids are being very much protected, you know, growing up very much sheltered lives, and all of a sudden they go into universities and colleges, and they're being let out, and that their self-confidence is not there, or it's shattered, and something happens, you know, some failures or something happens, they're unable to cope with that, right? How can parents give that self-confidence?
Yeah, so that is basically what we were talking about now, like building, like you have to trust your child, but for that you have to first give them the foundation. So the foundation should come from the parents, right? And to be able to show them the love, and at the same time let them know that, you know, this is not good, this is okay to do, and when you do this, you are hurting someone, you have to feel sorry, you have to say sorry for that, and then if this happens, this is the consequences. So and this is the time you go to bed, this is the time you come home, you know. So depending on the age of the child, and you know, if you do this, you'll get into trouble. If you do this, you're okay. So when you give this, when the child has that instructions, they feel safe and they feel confident in themselves. Okay, so this is now what I'm doing now is right, and that is how children build their self-esteem, from reflecting, from mirroring from the parents, right? And when that foundation is not there, it's really going to be hard. And what I see in the media and all that is not helping at all.
So how much is social media play into this?
I know in our community, I don't know, like sometimes I hear songs that youngsters have nowadays, like they have their like song culture.
Okay, yes.
And that's a good thing, but sometimes I get really shocked when I listen to the lyrics. Like it's almost like going back to a traditional way of, very, very traditional way of looking at things. Like, for example, like male, female, or like how males view females or females should view males. Like it's very traditional, very backwards. Like even the worst Indian Tamil movies, it's worse than that. So I'm thinking like, and then you read, just, you know, sometimes you're not aware of these things.
Information being overloaded more than their maturity level, is that what you're looking
like
at?
the disrespect shown for the opposite sex, for example, right? Like I hear it a lot, and then it's not helping with the Tamil movies we watch. You know, we see, you know, the best famous heroes are those who are violent, or they initially hit the girlfriend and then they become lovers, right? So the violence is seen as something powerful and something that you have to show. And again, the husband and wife in a family, like if the parents are not showing respect to each other.
So building that value system.
Value system, I see so much even in high schools, and how the attitudes are and that is how the foundation is going to be for their future life, right? And just looking at newspapers, or even, so you talked about creating the awareness, how we can as a community be helpful. So having programs like this, or each and every time, like when we give importance to physical health, also thinking about mental health, and just in some, you know, subtle ways we do stigmatize mental health ourselves, like in our jokes or in radio ads, you know. So to be aware of this, and I sometimes think, oh my God, so are we still there? We haven't moved on. So I think, you know, in a TV like a TV program or the newspapers or whatever media, like there should be some awareness around being sensitive to issues, being healthy, promoting healthy values. You know, yeah.
All right. So I know we have to go back, go for a break again. I know we will come when we come back. We'll talk about the community's roles and responsibilities in this, in building an inclusive community and contributing or fostering mental well-being of a society at large. So we will look at that when we come back after a break. Stay with us for more discussion on mental health with Dr. Pushpa Kanaratnam after a short break. Welcome back. This is Crossroads. I'm Sudarsha Ignatius. In today's show, we are discussing mental health. With me here in the studio, I'm joined by Dr. Pushpa Kanaratnam. She is helping us to understand this subject a little better. So right before the break, we were talking about the roles and responsibilities of a family. And then you also mentioned that on a community level as well, that we need to talk about mental health, and we need to take some steps, perhaps with a long-term vision. May not be immediately, but with a long-term vision. So do you think that is there a big silence about mental health problems or mental health in Tamil community?
Yeah, so as I told you before, I feel like there is an increasing awareness, but then we don't know how much is how many people are there, you know, suffering in silence. I'm sure there are a lot of people, because given even the background we have, you know, that doesn't mean that we all, you know, carry with us all the burden and then get so depressed, and so if we think like that, the whole community would have been traumatized and doing kind of, you know, ending up in hospital. But it's not like that. Like, people are resilient and people want to move on and all that, but surely there is a lot of you know, not being able to talk about stuff, and I see that there's a lot of issues there.
So we still need to. There's a bit of silence. There's a bit of silence.
Not a bit. I think
a lot of silence. Okay.
But I just want to. I want to think optimistic. Like, be optimistic about it. That, you know, things are hopefully improving. Yeah.
So I know you mentioned about some roles and responsibilities of family members. What do you think we could do on a community level? The reason I'm asking, I mean, when you look at mainstream, the larger Canadian society, I mean, Tamil community is a small subset of it, right? And we are moving forward, yes, on an individual level, but we're also moving forward as a community. So how do we address some of these mental health problems as a community? What the community leaders or community organizations can do in this regard? Yeah,
so it is like, I'm hoping and I'm assuming that there's a lot of things happening, hopefully, in the community, and organizations and service providers are more aware, or more about creating more awareness in this. Into this, and but I still feel like there is a lot more to be done, a lot more to be done, and again, as we spoke, like making it something that making it a topic that you can talk about. Like, say for example, how would it look like if you go one day to the temple and then there is someone they are speaking about some mental health issue,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And I'm not talking about a health forum that you have in a temple hall after everybody's gone, but just making it as obvious, something just there naturally, it's there, right? Because our people tend to be very religious, and they look up to, well, they go to the temple, they sit there, they want, if they are feeling not well, you know, like depressed or whatever, they use it as an outlet, and that's a good thing. And then if you see that the, you know, in some way the priests are involved in this, and then, you know, you can go and talk about this. You see this in Catholic Christian communities, that there is more I'm just a, you know, it's based on what what my experience is, that there's more support, more kind of, you know, but I think it's more for health than mental health. But then I'm thinking that making it more like trying to combine it with the coping mechanisms already people have, right?
Okay,
So yeah, so, and then as I said, I think the social media is very important.
Okay.
Like, and being sensitive to issues, being open-minded, not getting into the same old thing, right? And even our service providers being more open to things. And then when we talk about mental health or mental illness in these settings, we don't have to use the Western concepts. We don't have to stick to that only. Like, definitely people need an understanding on how things are seen here, but still then making it not just Western oriented, but also bringing back our knowledge from what we have, what we know, how we used to be strong in our communities, how we kept ourselves strong in through all the catastrophic things that happened to us, right? So trying to get some energy and positive things out of it, and making it understandable to people. Even professionals here, we are trained in Western psychiatry, Western medicine, or Western psychology, right? So trying to come a little bit out of it, and even when people say that they are coping in different ways, maybe they are going to see the astrologer. You know, you may not believe in astrology, but then if that is something that is going to be helpful for that person, so trying to kind of understand where the person is coming from, where the community is at, and at the same time trying to meet them somewhere in between.
Okay, so everybody, every single, I mean, individuals as well as families and community organization leaders and parents and teachers, everyone has a part in this, right? I also want to talk about your research or your special interest. You have special interest in immigrant and refugees' mental health. Are you still conducting this research? Tell us a little bit about that, and some findings that
right. So based on what my research is, so I've done some work on war trauma and some work on intimate partner violence, and with the intimate partner violence study, is what is shocking is that a lot of the younger generation are picking up the values from the parents. So it is as if even if you go back to Sri Lanka and talk to the youngsters there, they may have a more positive or more what do you call progressive thoughts about certain things, where here in because of the family values, and you get so, as you said, like you get so overly protected and sheltered, and you get these values from people, and the media, the movies we watch, the things we read, you know, and the attitude people have, like, you know, even 20-year-old girls were saying, you know, maybe I'll do the same thing like my mother did when I become 40, because that's what I learned, right? So that was something that was very hard, and then a lot of women struggling in silence and feeling very discriminated and stigmatized, ostracized, because of leaving from an abusive relationship. So that was hard, but at the same time people are trying to cope with things, and that was something good. And then with war trauma, what we see is that even though we have gone through a lot as a community, there's a lot of strength in the community and the collectivity, like, you know, because this is something that we all share in common, right? Mostly everybody has gone through things, so that kind of gives a strength for people. But at the same time, when there are stressors here in this country, that can kind of put things upside down. Like even though, like if things go well, smoothly, like you're moving on in your career, your family is doing well, everything is going fine, then there are no issues. But something happens, even the slight traumatic incident happens, people get really turned off, like things get really bad. So a lot of things seem to be like how people are settling in here, how people cope with stress here, and how much they are able to integrate with the community and feel a part of it, like feel the belongingness.
What are some barriers in terms of integrating with the community? Do you see, like, for example, language? Is it still a barrier that you see?
I wouldn't, yeah, definitely. There are a lot of people in a community of still, because you can survive here with Tamil, right? Yeah. So in a way, your basic life can go okay with Tamil, and I don't see anything wrong with it. But then when it comes to, I think it's more about values, different values and systemic barriers. You are not, that's what one old man told me, like, if I'm back home in Sri Lanka, I'm feeling a bit sad, depressed, I could just go and sit outside in the temple, and people will just walk by, they'll say, hi, how are you doing? And there'll be birds singing and the breeze, and you just sit there, and then you feel a bit better, you go home. But here, people are more isolated, people are busy with their lives, they have their own small groupings, and then it creates a lot of problems. And then the generational issues, like like parents coming and they're not knowing how to raise their kids properly, and really getting anxious about all these cultural issues, and if the kids are going to get spoiled.
So do you see that young people are sort of stuck between two different cultures? Is that still?
Yeah. At least with people who, like, kids who are having troubles, like youngsters who are having troubles, that's something that's definitely an issue, like because it's too late, because they have been brought up very strictly, different from other children, and then they grow up, and then children start to have problems, and then it's too late to do anything about it, right?
Do you see also, or have you found any sort of information to support that the members of Tamil community are still suffering from war trauma, the impacts, the effects of war? Is that still, or the history of violence in general, is it still having an impact on our mental health?
I wouldn't say trauma in the sense of post-traumatic stress disorder. I don't think our community is still thinking about or having nightmares or feeling like they are in a war zone or whatever, right? That people have gotten over it. But it's more, I think, when they hear about the stories, things happening to their family members, things continuously happening, then that is going to affect them. But I think still that the community overall is very resilient in that way, that I don't feel like they are directly affected by the war trauma in a mainstream sense, like post-traumatic stress in that way, but in different other ways. Yeah.
I know we're about time. We have to wrap up. Just quickly, very quickly, some tips, practical tips that strategies or steps that we could take to maintain our mental health on a daily basis, rather than waiting for something big to explore. Tell us, give us some quick tips that we can.
Tips.
Yes.
So quick tips is just basically what we all know, like having a balanced life, right? So not becoming, so stress is what, like nowadays we talk a lot about stress, but stress is when we have too many demands which we can't meet, right? So having that balance in life and not pushing yourself too much, too hard, and having some lovable relationships, talking openly about issues. Physical exercise is a big thing, and doing something that you enjoy on a daily basis, right? And so
all right. That's good enough, given that we don't have much time. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Much appreciated.
Thank you for this.
On that note, we're going to be signing off. That's all we have for you today. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.
அரங்கெங்கும் தமிழரின் பிம்பம் உங்கள் டிவி.